So hello everyone. I'm glad everyone is here today. If you all would take your seats please, we're going to continue our unit on the progressive era. Okay, thank you. Does anyone remember any of the key vocabulary words that we listed on the board yesterday? If you raise your hand if you can remember any of those. Okay, Carol, what did you remember? Muckraker, that's right. And do you recall what muckraker means? Okay, yes. A muckraker is a journalist who uncovers abuses and corruption in society. That's very good, Carol. Thank you. Does anyone else remember any other vocab words from yesterday? Kevin, you raised your hand. What word do you remember? Prohibition, that's right. Absolutely. Okay, and does anyone know what prohibition means? Sarah? Right. Prohibition was about laws that banned the manufacture, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages. That's very good. Does anybody else recall another word? Jason, go ahead. Initiative, yes, that's another word that we talked about. Do you recall how we defined initiative? Right. Initiative means the right of citizens to place a measure or issue before the voters of the legislature for approval. That's very good. Okay, even though we've had a few other words, I'm going to stop everyone right here because what we're going to do today involves a couple of these words that we've already talked about. But first, I want you to look at the two objectives that we have for today. The first objective I want you to look at is our language objective. Our language objective is students will be able to write and discuss ways that changes in society take place. And our content objective. Our content objective is students will be able to compare and contrast responses to the beginning of the progressive era. So we'll keep those in mind. All right, we're going to look at how issues in society can cause people to take a stand and call for changes to be made. So first, I'd like to have you think of something that you think should be changed in society that we live in now today. So take a minute and think. What in society today do you think should be changed? What problems do you see? And if you have an idea, raise your hand and let's hear your suggestions. Okay, Jill, what is it that you think? Okay, Jill thinks that people pay too much of their money in taxes to the government. That's a good issue. Does anyone else have an idea? Jared, you have your hand up. What problems do you see? Okay, Jared is concerned with gun violence. I'm sure many of you are concerned about gun violence and gun control. That's a good issue. Does anyone else have an idea? Patsy. Okay, Patsy is concerned about abortion issues. Okay, very good. All right, I'm sure that a lot of you have ideas, things that you're concerned about in society. So what we're going to do in this activity is we're going to split up into small groups. As we usually do, we're going to count off by fives. And we can start up front here with Carol. All right. Okay, good. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like group 1 people, please move up here to the front of the class. The 2s, please go to the green table in the back. 3s, please go to the blue table. Group 4, please go to the back corner. And group 5, you can use the bean bags. That's by the bookcase there. Thank you. Make sure everyone in your group has something to write with and paper, please. Okay, what we're going to do is each group is going to decide on an issue that they feel needs to be changed or addressed in society, something of concern. And group 1 needs to think of ways that they could make a difference as individuals in society regarding the problem that they come up with. Group 2 needs to discuss ways that they could encourage others to become interested in their cause. Group 3, I want you to think about how to get people to agree to a permanent solution to the problem. Group 4, you are to discuss whether or not your issue should be dealt with by the federal or state government. And group 5, you should discuss ways that you think some people might resist your idea for change, your reason for change. Be sure and write your ideas down and your responses so we can share them with the class, and we'll give you about 5 minutes to work on that. Okay, so our 5 minutes are up and we need to get to our ideas. So group 1, let's talk about what your idea was and how an individual could make a difference. And Sam, you said you were going to be responsible for your group, so why don't you share with us? Okay, Sam's group wanted to deal with the poor, and your group felt that individuals could make a difference by helping out just one person or just one family on their own. So individually they could deal with it that way. That's a very good idea. Okay, group 2. Bobby, your group is concerned with gun laws, and you feel that by holding town meetings and public hearings or events, it would get people to become part of your cause for change. That's very good. Group 3. Group 3, you were to think about ways that people could agree on a permanent solution. So Aaron, what did you come up with? Okay. You feel that by starting with a few possibilities and voting on them, you might be able to narrow it down to something that everyone can agree on. That's a very good idea. And group 4, you were to talk about whether your issue should be dealt with at a federal or state level. What did you come up with, Sarah? All right, Sarah says that her group was talking about taxes, so you feel that definitely government should be involved in that, and that's very true. And lastly, group 5. Group 5, you were to talk about resistance to your ideas or cause. Manny, what did you come up with there? All right, Manny said that his group is dealing with low wages, and his group felt that business owners would probably resist this because they don't want to pay more in wages to their employees, so they would find some resistance there. So that's good. Okay, when we started class, we mentioned a couple of words from our vocab from yesterday. One was muckraker, and one was initiative. A muckraker was a journalist who brought to light issues in society that weren't right and needed to be addressed, much like the ideas that you've come up with. An initiative is a method of bringing before a legislative body a proposal for change, something to vote on. So today, you've thought about some things that might be wrong in society and might need to be changed. You've been muckrakers in a sense, and you've also considered proposals for ways to make changes. What we're going to do for your homework assignment is write some ways that people responded to issues during the beginning of the Progressive Era, and you should consider issues involving worker safety. As we mentioned, we talked about the meat packers, or perhaps child labor, prohibition, another issue, or rights of women. And there are some specific things you should consider, and you should write these down. First, what caused these issues to become important? Second, why were they important now, but ignored for so long? Another one is why did people respond to these calls for actions? And how did they respond to these calls for actions? And then lastly, what would your response have been? Positive or negative? How would you have responded to some of these things? So that's going to be your homework assignment for tonight. And that will tie back in with our content objective, which was how students can compare and contrast responses to the beginning of the progressive era. We want to look at how these things took place at the beginning, what the responses were. Thanks, class.